Hello, this is Mark Denham, radio presenter, audio producer, podcaster, and voiceover. And today on part 40 of the audio journey, I am answering a question which has come from part 39. Part 39 was how to get your podcast from the edited version, which you have created, into the final version that you can upload to your host. The question I got was, do you process and match the loudness in the edit, or do you process and do that after? Now, let me show you here. This is the Bees Radio Network podcast. You can find out more at bracknellbees.com. I'm going to get rid of all of this because we don't need an entire podcast. It's about 45 minutes long. And you'll see what that leaves us with is we zoom in here. You've got an intro, you've got Graham, you've got me, and you've got this guide track here. That guide track is because social distancing, we cannot get together and record this. So I will record at my end my audio and Graham's Skype call, which is how we get together and do this. While at Graham's end, he will record and then send me his high quality audio. And that gives us something a little bit like this.
Bees Radio Network. Live coverage of Bees home games. The podcast.
Well, hello, hockey fans, and welcome back once again to the Bees Radio Network podcast, free to air across a variety of great listening platforms.
There you go. So there's the podcast. Bit of interaction between the two of us. I'm just going to cut this here. I'm so sorry, Graham. I'm cutting you mid-sentence. I just want a little bit of both of us. And then we just have under a minute to work with here for when it comes to the mixdown. Now, you could at this stage match the clip loudness, which is fine. And to demonstrate why you would still need to do it after, I'm going to open up another file here, and we'll call this Untitled 5, and we will generate noise for this. We'll generate noise, just some white noise is fine, and that'll sound like this. Okay, so now we'll open up another file and we will call that Untitled 6, and we will generate this time, let's say, a tone. So we'll just have a tone. How about that? I tell you what we'll do, actually. We don't need to sweep the frequencies. We'll just start with a tone. I'll bring it a little higher so you can actually hear it. There we are. There is a tone. Now, let me normalize this here to a set volume. Amplitude and compression, normalize, and I'm going to normalize it to -3 decibels. Okay? There it is. There's your tone normalized to -3 decibels. You got your white noise. Again, I'm going to go in effects, amplitude and compression, normalized to -3 decibels. Done. All right. So that's that done now. And now if I was to create a brand new multi-track session here, and if I was to put the two back to back here, you will see that when they play, they will be at -3 decibels. There we are, at -3 decibels. All right. Now, if I overlap them, watch what happens now with the VU meter at the bottom. Clipping. Because although they are both normalized at -3 decibels, they are playing on top of each other. And that's why I would suggest that if you do want to match your clip loudness in the podcast edit, then you're more than welcome to do so. But again, it is something that you have to look at the end as well. Because if there's any talking over or anything like that, whilst you've normalized each individual clip loudness to -16 LUFS, the podcast standard loudness units against full scale, if there are any talkovers or anything like that where you're going back and forth, then that -16 LUFS will be per clip, and that means that if you talk over, you will exceed that -16 LUFS. So let's just do this here. We will match the clip loudness in the edit to -16 LUFS. Again, go for that one, the ITU-R BS1770-3 loudness, -16 LUFS, loudness units against full scale. So we will do that, and there we are. We are now all at minus 16 LUFS.
Bees Radio Network. Live coverage of Bees home games. The podcast.
Well, hello, hockey fans, and welcome back once again to the Bees Radio Network.
So that's Graham at minus 16 LUFS, and then into me.
Favourite number, Mark Denham, how are we?
Hello, Graham. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very well. You're just not going to react.
You're holding on to the awards ceremony.
Yeah,
there,
you're just not going to react.
And you can see there, if we zoom in on this, you can see there, Graham and I are both talking at the same time. So whilst we have matched the loudness of the individual clips to minus 16 LUFS, when we now go in and we mix down this very, very abridged podcast, we will get a file which has Graham, I, and the intro all together. And there it is.
Bees Radio Network. Live coverage of Bees home games. The podcast.
Well, hello, hockey fans, and welcome back once again to the Bees Radio Network.
Now, we matched down all of the clip loudness here, didn't we, to minus 16 LUFS. If you go in here to the loudness radar, okay, you want to be going into the loudness radar here, and we are looking at LUFS, so we want a target of minus 16 LUFS. Let me see how close I can get that. Bang on, minus 16 LUFS. Let's watch this now on the loudness meter.
Bees Radio Network. Live coverage of Bees home games. The podcast.
Well, hello, hockey fans, and welcome back once again to the Bees Radio Network podcast, free to air across a variety of great listening platforms.
Now, you can see here, we are at minus 11.3 LUFS. That is higher than the podcast standard. Why is that, you may say, when you did the clips? Well, if you look here, on the tracks, there are different processes here. Again, on Graham's track, there are different processes, and that is adding EQ, a bit of compression, a bit of makeup gain on each track. So that minus 16 LUFS was a great start, but you can see when we get into the final mixdown here of this file, which is here, we are over the standard. And that is why I would recommend now that you drag down this mix down with your target loudness again at that standard of minus 16. Let it run through this. Now, it won't take long because it's only a very short podcast, this one, okay? I've cut off most of the podcast just to be able to demonstrate this to you now. Now, let's go back into the effects rack and we'll pop open the loudness radar again, and let's have a look this time at what we get.
Bees Radio Network. Live coverage of Bees home games. The podcast.
Well, hello, hockey fans, and welcome back once again to the Bees Radio Network podcast, free to air across a variety of great listening platforms. We hope you're enjoying it. Hope you're all keeping well as well. This is episode number 34, which is, of course, great delight to the president and founder of the Roman Malinik fan club, because it is his favourite number. Mark Denham, how are we?
Hello, Graham. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very well. You're just not going to react.
You're holding on to the awards ceremony.
Yeah, you're just not going to react.
Now, you can see there, we are still slightly over minus 16 LUFS. Even in the match clip loudness, we are slightly over minus 16 LUFS. And if we pop this open, you can see here, that we are looking at here, the statistics of how much has been reduced in the match clip loudness window. We are still slightly over, so it may very well be that we just want to drop that just a little bit and see how we get on if we do this again now. So let me clear that, and we'll go back into here and the loudness radar meter, which I do think I need to clear actually off of here and add back on to get the statistics back as they were. So under special loudness radar meter, go into settings again. We want a setting of LUFS, and we want minus 16 LUFS as our target loudness. Let's have a listen. Radio Network. Let's try it from the start, shall we? Try it from the start and see what we get.
Bees Radio Network. Live coverage of Bees home games. The podcast. The podcast. The podcast.
Well, hello, hockey fans, and welcome back once again to the Bees Radio Network podcast, free to air across a variety of great listening platforms. We hope you're enjoying it. Hope you're all keeping well as well. This is episode number 34, which is, of course, great delight to the president and founder of the Roman Malinik fan club, because it is his favourite number. Mark Denham, how are we?
Hello, Graham. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very well. You're just not going to react.
You're holding on to the awards ceremony.
Yeah,
now,
you're just not going to react.
Bees Radio Network moment of the season. Okay, so there we are. Now we can see, when you look at the loudness meter here, which will go round the podcast, you can see here we are within the tolerance, other than that tiny little bit there. We're not going to worry about that tiny little bit there. We are now within the tolerance of the loudness standard for podcasts. So that's why I would say, if you are creating a podcast here, then yes, by all means, if you drag the clips in raw and you match the clip loudness and you don't do any processing, then there's only going to be the bits that talk over that are going to exceed that loudness standard, because obviously, as we displayed in the other multi-track session, when you outlay two things here that are set to -3, put the two of them together, it goes over. So the same, if you match your clip loudness in the podcast, in the edits to -16, and you do no processing on it at all, then that is fine until you get to talk over. Then you may still very well be over the loudness standard. So I would say it's totally up to you. If you want to match the clip loudness in the podcast edit, as I have now done here, then that is fine. It's totally up to you if you want to match that loudness there. But just be aware that when you do come down to the final mixdown, it may very well be where you've got talk over bits and things like that, you exceed that loudness. So I would say, even if you have mixed the clip loudness in the podcast edit, just run it through one final time. Just pop open the match loudness window, which again you can get from here, match loudness, drag your file down, make sure you're set at -16 LUFS, and then just click run. That will then ensure that your final podcast is at the target loudness level that you want to upload to your podcast host. Okay, so that's my top tip for you. Remember, of course, if you are matching the clip loudness in the waveform, as we did do in the podcast multi-track session, if you are going to match that there, then that's all good. But once you start doing any processing here, then let's take a look at Graham, for example. We'll have a look on the effects rack there. We've got a bit of adaptive noise reduction, some dynamics, which has a makeup gain on it, huge makeup gain to bring Graham up to a level. We've got a de-esser. We're just adding a little bit of amplification and some parametric equalizer. All that will have an effect on the loudness of the podcast track. So you are going to exceed your -16 LUFS. So, yeah, best practice does say, once you drag the clips in to the podcast multi-track to edit, your host, your guest, maybe a telephone interview, maybe a Skype interview, maybe Zoom, whatever it is, you are going to have to do some processing in multi-track, which may very well then take you above the loudness standard. So as I said in the last one, mix down your podcast and then run it one final time through match clip loudness and get it down on that match loudness to your target volume level. If you are producing for a podcast, then it'll be -16 LUFS. That's the accepted standard there. If you are producing something for YouTube, then -14 LUFS is the standard that you want to go for. If you are going, of course, for YouTube, it's quite simple. Just change that number there over in the target loudness to -14 rather than -16. But for this purpose, we are producing a podcast, so we are quite happy with -16 LUFS. Hopefully that's been of help to you now. You can't match your clip loudness too often. So it doesn't matter if you do it twice, once in the edit, once in the final mix down, that's fine. Once you've got that final mix down, which we have here, which is our very, very short podcast because I've cut most of it off, then you can match that clip loudness to -16 LUFS and then do as we said in the last one. Go through over here add your tags in here as we did in the last one. So you've got your episode number, your artist, your album artwork, your comments, which is the brief description of your podcast. In this episode, Graham and Mark talk about blah, blah, blah. Genre, that's podcast. And then, of course, copyright Bracknell Bees, and you put in the website. What I will do here, because we can do this, I'll just save this very, very quickly, take you through once again the metadata. Now, in the effects rack, I've got the loudness radar. We can delete that because we're happy that has now hit the loudness radar. We can save that as Bees Radio Network Mixdown 2, and then we want to save that as an MP3 file. Remember, of course, for podcast hosts, just in case yours is one of the picky ones that only takes 16-bit files, then save it as that. It doesn't really matter because obviously you've done all your editing now. You don't need to worry about being in 32-bit floating point anymore, but you would then go in and you would quickly do your tags. Episode 34, the artist is the Bracknell Bees. You could go through and you could get your logo, which I will do for this. I will get the logo and we'll stick that in as well. Comments in this episode, blah, blah, blah. Genre will be podcast, and then you just need to go down and you need to enter the copyright details. So there you are. That is your podcast now, bracknellbees.com. If you want to find out more about them, Berkshire's premier sporting ice hockey club, bracknellbees.com. You can see the website there. Then you're ready to give that one final save now. So you can just save that file and it's done. That is your podcast done. So the question was, do you match the clip loudness either in the multitrack when you edit or in the final? I would say do it in both, because the likelihood is, especially if you have a Skype guest or a phone guest, you are going to want to run some form of noise reduction on there to cut out any background noise in the Skype call or on the phone call, or indeed Zoom, whatever it is. You may, of course, also wish to add a little bit of compression and processing as well. And you can then quite safely mix it down and match the clip loudness in the final track. One final thing that we will do, I'm going to turn off the processing for Graham. I'm going to turn off the processing for me. And now we will just mix this down one more time, and you will see a different waveform this time, because there are no processing going on either of the tracks. You can see there.
Well, hello, hockey fans, and welcome back once again to the Bees Radio Network podcast, free to air across a variety of...
There you are. So that time we've turned off the equalization, the compression, everything and that. You will now see, if we do run the loudness meter here, that we will be way, way, way over the target loudness. So again, into settings, we're looking at LUFS, loudness units against full scale, and up to -16. And let's have a little look at that.
Of great listening platforms. We hope you're
way over, way, way, way over. And that was with the clips already matched to -16 as well. So we are way over in terms of that. So again, now that mixdown 3, drag it into your window here. We've already done 2. So drag that into your window there. Just run it, analyze it, clear this off altogether, back into the effects rack, get rid of the loudness radar, just so we know that we're starting from scratch again with that special loudness radar meter settings of LUFS for your loudness units against full scale. -16 is your target, and off you go.
Live coverage of Bees home games. The podcast.
Well, hello, hockey fans, and welcome back once again to the Bees Radio Network podcast, free to air across a variety of great listening platforms. We hope you're enjoying it. Hope you're all keeping well as well. This is episode number 34.
And there you can see we are hovering around that -16 target LUFS for your podcast. So that is how you do it. Match it in the clip window by also in the multitrack, because then at least you are working with voices that are very much similar in level. It could be that perhaps you're recording quieter than your guest, or your guest is recording quieter than you. It may be that the Skype call or whatever, the telephone call is louder or quieter than you are. So yes, match clip loudness in the edit so you know that you are working with roughly the same volume. Then go through, put on your equalization, put on your any processing that you need to do, your de-esser, your compression, put any of that on that you need to do, and then mix it down, run it through match loudness one final time before you add your tags and you upload to your podcast host. Hopefully that has answered the question. And if you do have any other questions, of course, they're all available to ask on markdenham.com. There's a contact tab there, and you can ask away with your questions there, and I will get back to you. And if necessary, we can do a video and explain the answer to the question. Alternatively, of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can comment below with your question, and I will get back to you again with that. The entire audio journey is at markdenham.com, all 40 parts now, including this one. And I know, obviously, the world is in lockdown. The most important thing is stay safe, stay home, stay well, protect the NHS and save lives if you're in the UK. A lot of people are looking into getting into podcasting. If you have a great idea on podcasting, go back and check out the first couple of episodes of this audio journey, because it'll tell you the equipment that you will need for setting up and getting your podcast off and running in terms of microphones, interfaces, processors, mixers. However far you intend to go into this, you will get the ideas on the equipment you need back at the start of the audio journey. We have done, if you go back to episode 13, then that shows you how to edit a podcast. And then in the last two, we've shown you basically how to finalize that edit of the podcast and get it into a file that you can then upload to your host. If you feel daunted by the production, the editing and the production of your podcast, feel free to give me a shout. markdenham.com. One of the things that I do is podcast editing and production. So if you have a podcast and you have a brilliant idea and you're thinking, do you know what, I just don't know how to finish it, give me a shout and I can help you with that. It's one of the things that I do. I can get your podcast, be it just you or be it you and some guests as well. I can get your podcast all edited, sounding great, produced and finished at that target loudness level. And then either you or I, depending on whichever way you want, can upload it to your podcast host. Hopefully this has answered today's question, or indeed yesterday's question. And then that'll help you get that podcast finalized and up on your host at all the right loudness standards. As always, any questions, feel free to ask either via the website or via YouTube. Keep yourself safe, keep yourself healthy, and keep producing amazing audio.